Class, welcome to the Unit 7 mini lecture. My name is Jeremy Howell and I am your instructor for NUR 5053 for the rest of the course. So coming in just a little bit late here, so thanks for being somewhat flexible as we get the classroom all organized and set up for you. A little bit about myself. I live in eastern North Carolina in a little town called Swansboro, about 5.5 hours from y'all at Bluefield College. I am in the Navy full-time. I've been in the Navy 20 years, nearly 20 years. I'm about to retire here at the end of June, so really looking forward to that. I'm a healthcare administrator by trade, been all over the world. I've been to Bremerton, Washington. I've been to Spain. I've been to Washington, D.C., Texas, Japan. So been all over the place and done. I've been a Department of Human Resources, a compliance officer, manpower analyst, clinical informaticist. So there have been a few things that I've done over the course of my 20 years in the Navy as a healthcare administrator. So I'm not a nurse by trade, but I've worked with plenty of nurses and know the great ones when I see them. So I learned a lot from nurses when I was a medic in the Navy. Worked the labor and delivery unit my first tour and worked night shift for 2 full years and worked with 3 fantastic nurses, Mrs. Grady, Miss Hudson, who are recently retired and living here in eastern North Carolina as well. So again, welcome. And I just wanted to kind of go over just a little bit of what you'll be discussing this week as you talk about reimbursement in particular, but talking about the financial management organization of the healthcare system as a whole, right? So it's pretty interesting. It's pretty convoluted. It's pretty complex. It's challenging. Even the most seasoned providers and administrators can sometimes have difficulty in navigating the financial aspects of a healthcare environment. Legislation, local policies, state policies, you name it, all that impacts the healthcare organization. The U.S. healthcare system is a behemoth, right? So, we've got the consumers, we've got the providers, we've got the employers in the U.S. healthcare system, in this cartoon running away. But some would say this isn't that far of a stretch because as we try to improve access and quality and cost, it seems to get away from us. So what this slide depicts is really just the convoluted nature of our healthcare system, the financial side of it anyway. There's no other industry like it in the country, really, to where we set out to purchase something, but we hire a third-party payer, or we pay somebody else to negotiate the cost for us in hopes that we can go to that place, and hopefully that third-party payer is negotiated well enough so that our money will cover the costs. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but that's the way the healthcare system works, right? So we have us, the consumer, down here. We go to the hospital, we go to a clinic to receive care. So our providers will provide us with, the nurse practitioner, the PA, the physician, they'll provide us with some form of medical service. We in turn will pay an out-of-pocket fee, typically, right? Like a copay. Maybe we'll pay completely out of pocket. Or we'll have employer-sponsored healthcare insurance, which most Americans have. Or we'll pay the insurance company direct, right? So if we have employer-sponsored healthcare, we'll receive that healthcare in the form of lower wages. Our employer will get a tax break. They'll pay our health insurer premiums. Or we'll pay our health insurance carrier premiums, and they'll provide us coverage, right? So if we have coverage, we go to the doctor then will file a claim. The health insurance company will then determine if, in fact, the services that we were rendered are covered under our healthcare insurance, and then they will in turn provide payment if and such we are authorized payment for that care, right? So the third-party payer. So a pretty complex system, but this really just is meant to kind of just boil down to brass tacks, kind of the interesting nature of our healthcare system. And reimbursement methods. We have several reimbursement methods, right? There are various that exist: fee-for-service, capitation, value-based reimbursement, DRGs, RVSs. There are many of them. So you're going to talk about a few of those, one in particular this week. But the driving force behind limiting reimbursement is Medicare, right? So we don't have this central governing agency in the United States, unlike any other healthcare system in the world, that manages our healthcare system or attempts to kind of corral it. Medicare kind of plays that role through legislation, through enactment of, we have the Patient Protection Affordable Care Act, and Medicare is in charge of kind of pushing out some of the nuances of the Affordable Care Act. And so they kind of, in a sense, control the healthcare system as much as any one entity does, if you will. And then, of course, fee-for-service capitation, and then I would be willing to add value-based reimbursement as another broad category of reimbursement, which is it's a newer concept. But fee-for-service, right, based on the assumption that healthcare is provided in a set of identifiable individual distinct units of service. So we go in, we receive care, down to the Band-Aid, up to the physical exam. There's a line item that the doctor is going to charge us for, or the provider, right? Initially set by providers in hospitals. And so insurers, back in the day, they passively paid whatever the providers requested. Fee-for-service was pretty dominant. Providers loved fee-for-service. They still love fee-for-service because they're going to be reimbursed for whatever they do. That's the intent of fee-for-service. But of course, there are some issues with fee-for-service, right? It's volume-based. So the more a provider does, the more they get reimbursed. And so there's that incentive for the provider to maybe do just a little bit more than maybe what's necessarily required. Capitation, just a little bit different than fee-for-service. It attempts to reduce cost. Really came into play in the 1990s when HMOs really began to take hold. It established financial incentives because what it did, it said, hey, here's, just as an example, hey, provider A, here's $20,000. You have 20 patients. Here's 20 grand to see those 20 patients over the course of the year. If you're able to keep costs at 16 grand for those patients, for example, then you can keep the $4,000 that difference. But if you go over that amount, then, well, of course, then that's going to come out of your hide. It's not going to come out of our hide because we've already pre-negotiated the payment. The providers are typically assigned a specific population of patients, and it's a fixed fee. But there are problems to that. Providers don't like capitation. There were providers in some states in the 90s, California, Texas, Minnesota, they were financially harmed as a result of capitation for lack of planning, really more or less than anything else. But providers bear the short-term risk because, we don't know what's going to go through the door. Patient A can be healthy one minute, but unhealthy the next, and healthcare is not cheap. Capitation is insurance companies like capitation, but providers not so much. But the payers will ultimately bear the long-term risk because providers can, of course, increase costs the next year for contract negotiations, and then that's, of course, passed on to the consumer. Then, of course, there's value-based reimbursement, right? And so why does it exist? What is it? Well, the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act of 2010 kind of really set into place value-based reimbursement, value-based care. And it's reimbursement that ties payments for care delivery to quality of care, right? So now we've got patient satisfaction, we've got, readmission reduction, we've got hospital-acquired infection reduction, with the intent to increase efficiency and effectiveness, right? So a value-based reimbursement looks at improving quality, increasing price transparency, hopefully leading to better health, better care coordination. And so the ACA really kind of turned healthcare on its head and said, hey, we really want to only start reimbursing you if you keep patients healthy. And, ironically, back in ancient Chinese medicine, that's how the doctors were paid. So we're kind of almost repeating history here. So anyway, supposed to keep these mini lectures somewhat short, so want to say thanks for coming in and checking this video out. If you have questions, send me an email, shoot me a text. All my contact information is in the virtual classroom. Have fun this week, and if you have questions again, don't hesitate to let me know. Have a good one. Ciao.